Somebody gave me some advice once. They said every time you go into something, go into it thinking, how can you help someone, and not what can I get from it. And I think if you genuinely do that, of course you're going to get something back from it. But if you genuinely change your mind to be, how can I help you in every situation, it will make such a difference to you and everyone you deal with.
Folks, welcome to another episode of the Parentpreneurs Show, where we find out amazing people who are juggling the skills of parenting and being an entrepreneur. Today, I've got the great pleasure in introducing my audience to Ellie Donaghy. Ellie, take a bow, say hello, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I have been practicing to say parentpreneur in the last week or so, and I keep getting it wrong. So yeah, bear with me on that.
Oh, don't worry. I came up with it and I still struggle spelling it. So yeah, to fully expect a rebrand sometime in the future. Yeah. But hey, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
I love it. I just can't say it.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like, ready, fire, aim, get on with it, make it perfect later. So Ellie, I'm not going to sort of give a whole pressy on you, but you've got a property developing background and you're a mum to two very young children.
Yes.
But please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so my children are 9 months and very nearly 2. And prior to having children, I had a big sort of corporate career, and I headed up a lettings division for a property business that was turning over sort of 25 million pounds a year. I loved that, loved my job, loved everyone I worked with, but it was a lot of pressure, a lot of hours. There wasn't a lot of flexibility. And about 18 months before I had my daughter, I'd been put at risk of redundancy. And I was very lucky in the fact that actually I went on and secured a better position in the business. But it did get me thinking that actually my income and things was quite volatile. I was fully reliant on somebody else to pay my salary every month. And if for some reason that was to be gone and I did have children, then that was half of our annual household income would be gone. So it was about 18 months before I actually did it that I sort of started thinking really seriously. I'd always wanted to be a property developer. In fact, I wanted to be a builder when I was younger, but thank God I never followed that dream. I'd have been useless. So yeah, it was then that when I got put at risk of redundancy that really made me start thinking about, how can I be a bit more in control of my own income and things. So my partner's a chartered surveyor. No, he's not. He's a chartered accountant. And I went to him when I was about 7 months pregnant and sort of said, I've decided I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to set up my own business. And he was sort of like, right, okay, are you sure about this? But he was very good and said, look, if you really, 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 really want to do it, why are you not doing it? Why are you procrastinating? Why are you thinking about it? So being an accountant, I'm sure you can imagine that had to be backed up by 55,000 spreadsheets to make sure this was going to work and that was going to work and that we had a proper business plan. But it was a combination of the being put at risk of redundancy and thinking this could happen again in the future. How do I stabilize this? I was pregnant, so I was having a family and I wanted a sort of different work-life balance. Don't get me wrong, we've got to talk about it, the hours and things I work now, it's not less, but it's more flexible and it's kind of what I was looking for. So that's kind of what's led me to where I am today. After setting up my business, I was 7 months pregnant. So 2 months later, I had my daughter. And then 5 months after I had her, I found out I was pregnant again. So I set up a business. So within 15 months, I set up a business and had 2 babies. So yeah,
it's pretty amazing. It's pretty well. It's just as well you're very good at project management, isn't it? Because that's the ultimate in project management. I love what you said just now with respect to realizing that you were dependent upon the paycheck for your financial security, and it's a conversation that I have quite a lot. Funnily enough, from family members as much as it is from people who don't really know me, going, "Oh my gosh, that's so risky."
Yeah.
Well, at least it's a risk that's within my own control.
And that's exactly how I felt. I earn really good money. I don't deny it. It's not a secret. So to give up that salary, people were like, oh, you know, especially family and things, how are you going to feed your babies? But, you know, somebody could have taken that away from me. And when I was put at risk of redundancy, I was on a 14-day consultation. So, you know, of course, I'd have got paid notice, and redundancy, it would have only been statutory redundancy, so it wouldn't have been huge. But within a month, that could be gone.
Yeah.
So, and somebody else is in control of that. So I think becoming a mum, that sort of started to really resonate with me a bit more of, I don't want to be in the situation where I work 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week for somebody else's benefit, and that they're completely in control of that and can just take it away from me like that. So yeah, does that make me a bit of a control freak? I'll say no. Brett will probably tell you yes, but you know, we'll beg to differ on that.
And so do you think it was, obviously you'd got the idea there of being a builder when you were younger and then wanted to be a property developer, but was it finally the children on the horizon and arriving that pushed you off the cliff, that made you take that jump?
Yeah, I think so. I think had I not been put at risk of redundancy, I don't think I would have necessarily have been thinking about it for as long as I had been prior to being pregnant. But I think getting pregnant was the definite, you know, the final sort of, I want to be in control of this sort of thing, definitely. But it's something I've always wanted to do. So, you know, years and years ago, I surrounded myself with like a different sort of group of people, shall we say, and I shared with people there that I wanted to be a property developer. It's what I really wanted to do. It's what I've always wanted to do. And I make no secret about it. I've done some public speaking and I've spoke about this. That they laughed at me and they said, oh, "What are you going to do? Design the properties with your crayons?" And it does massively knock your confidence. So for years, I was like, "Oh, you know, yeah, I'll stick with the salary, stick with the corporate. It's the way to go." And then the redundancy, and then the pregnancy, and then I'm all nervous to go to Brett, knowing he's going to want to analyse the absolute bejeebies out of this.
Yeah.
But he was just great and was like, "Okay, but if you really want to do it, let's do it. Like, we have to make sure it's going to work, and we have to make sure we take risks, but calculated risks. But yeah, let's do it." And I think having that support rather than the "you're mad, you'll never be able to do it," then yeah, let's do it. Like, make sure we've got it right, but let's do it. That also gives you the confidence to go and do it.
Absolutely. And I can't imagine, you know, by luck or by design, a better partner to have, you know, a chartered accountant. That's fantastic. The weights and measures element of that is awesome. If I'd had that in my earlier days, then yeah, you know, a few of my earlier episodes would have been probably a lot more successful. So.
Well, exactly. Don't get me wrong, he is an accountant, so he's boring as hell. But you know, as a business partner, that's pretty good.
We can always edit that out if you want.
Nothing I wouldn't say to his face.
Well, that's fair enough. So I see a lot of your posts on social media. You're very active on Instagram with your property mission, and also LinkedIn. And what I love about these posts is they're like brutally honest and humorous with it. And okay, I'm a guy, so slightly different sort of challenges with respect to what goes on between parenting and business, but yeah, they do resonate with me. Tell us a little bit more about what you're up to and the kind of the message you're also conveying through your business.
Yeah, so what I'm up to at the moment, the projects I've got on at the moment is some big HMO conversions, so house of multiple occupation. So whether that's for students or you know, like student nurses or things like that, we're putting together big multiple houses in and around the Bristol area. So one of the ones we've got at the moment, we're taking it from a 3-bed to a 7-bed, and we've had to go through commercial change of use for that. And then we've got 2 others that have got 3 beds that we're converting into 6 beds. The housing crisis is all over the news at the moment. People can't afford to get onto the property ladder and buy properties in many cases, but they can't afford to rent because the interest rates go up, landlords exit, pushes rents up. So we're trying to sort of help and bridge that gap with a hybrid with the houses of multiple occupation, where it's rooms, but we're doing it to sort of more of like a luxury standard, you know, quartz worktops, good furniture, not, you know, I've worked in lettings and I've seen like some student house where you've got like slugs coming through the lounge and things like that. Like that is not what we're aiming for. And we've got planning out for some other things where we're looking to build some new builds, and they will be sort of very good quality, but we're looking for more sort of affordable housing to try and help with this crisis. And then what we do is we use all local contractors. We don't use big corporations. So we try and work with local people, so we support their businesses as well. And we use private investors, where we then pay them a fixed return, which is much more than they get in the bank. So we try to keep everything we do quite personal. And yeah, as you see on my Instagram stories, I've usually got one, if not two babies along for the ride with me. And that's just interesting, shall we say. Yeah, they love it. They have to come out on site with me, and they've got their own plastic tools, and they like to think they get involved. And I think, you know, because we use local people and we build up relationships with our contractors and things, they love to get involved with the kids, and the kids get involved. And I think it just makes a difference. You know, I'm here to make money. I make no bones about that. But I'm not here to, you know, be a shark, be cutthroat or anything like that. You know, I wanted a better life and a happier, more comfortable life for myself and for my family, and that's what we're trying to create. But you know, I'm also honest with it. You probably saw my post a week or 2 weeks ago where Tuesday I was out on site, I was seeing contractors, I was speaking to the solicitors, I was dealing with the bank recs, I'm, you know, ordering materials, and the next day my toddler's locked me out of the house and locked herself and a 9-month-old son, my 9-month-old son, in the house with the keys. So you know, it's not all sort of, you know, fun and games over here. There's a lot of challenges that go with it.
It's not all unicorns and rainbows.
It's not unicorns and rainbows.
But I love what you said there as well. It's an interesting point, and the concept of fair exchange, which I try to do and achieve in all my sort of like commercial like enterprises. Actually, I try to do it with the kids as well. But fair exchange for me is where somebody is giving something, someone is receiving something, and both parties feel that they've had a good deal there. And that does require, as you said, not being an absolute cutthroat shark, but it also means that, you know, you have to feel well done by out of the deal, as does the counterpart.
Yeah, I'm running a business. I make no bones about it. This is not a not-for-profit organisation. I'm here to run a business to replace my salary, to have a nice life for myself and my family. But I also want to improve the lives of the contractors, of the people who live in the house, the people who want to invest with us, you know, the neighbours. We try and bring the properties, you know, run down properties up to a good standard. And anytime you say house and multiple occupation, all the neighbours go, oh my God, who's going to be living there? And then the house starts to come together, and then I meet with them and we talk it through, and they think, actually, this isn't too bad. We will soundproof all properties, everything like that, you know, provide parking, things like that. So like I say, I'm here to run a business, but I want to be fair, and I like to bring everyone else in with us. And people will also, you know, often say, well, why do you use private investors? Why don't you just go to the bank? You're right, I could go to the bank, and in some instances it'd be cheaper. But I would rather give an individual a return on their money that they've just got sat in the bank than some fat cat who's going to go and make money and it benefits nobody other than them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And within reason as well, if you're dealing with professional investors, and I've done a little bit of this as well, they know exactly what questions to ask. And often, instead of a 40-page loan contract from a bank or a building society, you can end up with, I think the longest one I've ever looked at is a 5-pager, but normally they're sort of, you know, 1 to 3 pages. It's straightforward. It's, you know,
that's exactly how we work. It's a lot of it is done on trust. A lot of it is, but if you lend me money, you are going to get that money back on your return, whether I have to go and beg, borrow, steal, or sing on the corner. You know, like if I've said I'm paying it back, I'm paying it back. Like, that's all there is to it. And you know, I got Brett in the corner going, check this, check that, check this, check that. All right. So yeah, we know where we would never take something that we know we couldn't pay back.
You couldn't do. I think it's great as well, and I think, you know, necessity being the mother of invention. I think the commercial environment in the UK, I know it's a global, you know, crisis in terms of economic pressures, but the UK seems to be quite acute. I think that necessity has created some really innovative solutions from innovative people like yourself.
And that's the thing, you know, we saw a niche in the market, we saw a hole in the market, and actually, like I say, we can benefit so many people across doing what we're doing. You know, it's a mindset shift rather than being sort of like, and I genuinely believe this, you know, somebody gave me some advice once, and they said, every time you go into something, go into it thinking, how can you help someone, and not what can I get from it. And I think if you genuinely do that, of course, you're going to get something back from it. But if you genuinely change your mind to be, how can I help you in every situation, it will make such a difference to you and everyone you deal with.
Yeah, that's a great sentiment. I like that. So I'm in a slightly more enviable position. As I said, my kids are sort of nearly 8 and 9.5. So I have the
Yeah,
luxury, at least during school terms, of
yeah,
having a solid 6 hours to myself during the day.
that's the dream.
Oh, honestly, the day they both went into school, we actually went out and had a celebratory brunch, my
That would
wife
be
and I.
me.
And we were like, wait, look at this, we can do things again.
Yeah,
So it's quite interesting. You can coping strategies in terms of both work and in terms of, like, sort of, we don't do date nights, we do date lunches, for example, because it's just nicer that way.
yeah,
And it works better. Plus I get tired and grumpy, after sort of 8 o'clock. So yeah.
yeah.
But I love hearing other parentpreneurs strategies for juggling the two sort of like quite polar opposite worlds of being an entrepreneur and being a parent. You mentioned about your 9-month-old and the key episode. Now, from very basic things like that, keeping your cool and not sort of having a massive panic attack, to running the business on a daily basis. What ways do you cope? What strategies do you use?
Yeah, so I mean, firstly, I just want to be completely honest and open here. Like, I have cried, I have shouted, I have, like, wanted to run away from this. I'm committed to it. I never will, and I will make it happen. But I don't want any, and this is why I try to be honest on my social media and things. I don't want anyone thinking she's living the dream, off running 3 projects and it's great and you never get stressed. Like, that's not the case. So, like, firstly, that's not the case. I do have support from my parents. So Erin goes to nursery on a Monday. I still have Connor, but it's not too bad because he's only 9 months, so he will nap, he will go to sleep in a car seat, so that is easier, bless him. And my parents have the kids once a week. So my main strategy is just to be organized. So, do as much as I can in the day, but have some time, like yesterday, take an hour out to play with the toys and to appreciate them. Otherwise it can be like, shh, 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 mummy's working, shh, mummy's on the phone. And that's no good. That's not the life I was trying to create. So it's trying to be organized. Every night I'll look at what happened that day, what have I got to get done tomorrow, what's essential to get done tomorrow, what can't wait. And then every evening it's trying to sort of catch up, what can I do on the evening, what has got to be done tomorrow. And then every Sunday Brett and I sit down and we go through everything that's happened that week and everything for the next week. Can I, if it's just emails and chasing things, I can do that on an evening. I can do that if they've got a nap. But if there's a call or something like that, trying to schedule it in for where the kids are with my parents, or where I know Erin's at nursery and Connor will probably nap, or people probably see it on my social media or Instagram. I've been literally known to drive around for 2 hours doing all my calls on the phone because I know that if it's at lunchtime they will go to sleep. So it's just trying to be organized, trying to know nothing's a dead cert with children, is it ever? No. But what is roughly, when do you think they might nap? When will they be with my parents? What can I do with them around? That sort of thing. And it's just the organization. But I have to remind myself, and one of my 2 favorite sayings are, everything's a phase. So whatever they're doing where you think, it's a phase, they're going to grow out of it. And the other thing is, somebody told me, the days are long, really long, but the years are really short. And it's so true. Erin got to 1 and I was just like, oh, how did that happen? So it's just trying to take some time every day, even if it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever, and just appreciate that fact and try not to let that just whiz by and you think, well, where did that go? Really enjoy them as well.
That's really sound advice, and I love it. And the organizational side of things as well, that's very much me. We have a start of the week meeting. I plan my week on the Sunday, then first thing Monday morning after school drop off, we're straight into like a family PLC meeting. How we go. It's so good. It's and the time spent as well. I've noticed that I mean, the attention span, even with my 2, is probably not much more than 15-20 minutes. And if you give that undiluted attention, then that kind of often satisfies them. Someone said to me yesterday, interestingly enough, and she's a child psychologist, so I take her opinion quite seriously. She said, because I work from home a lot of the time, she said it's almost tougher to be present but not available. So if they see me at my desk, it's like, okay, daddy's working and stuff like that. So you kind of have to be mindful of that. So like you, I've now packed it in sort of from drop off time when they're back home from school, 3 o'clock, that's it. I'll stop work. I have to accept nothing's going to happen until they've gone to bed then. and then
Yeah.
like you catch up, sort out the day, make sure the most important things, in hand. So I think that's lovely. What other bits of advice would you kind of give people who are thinking about this? Because we're trying to help people who are early startups or who are kind of aspiring but may have these fears and sort of concerns about making the leap like you have done.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice, and I do need to take this myself sometimes as well. So, when Brett's listening to this and he's thinking, really, it is just give yourself a break, because I'll get to the end of the day sometimes and think, well, I didn't give the kids enough today, and or I haven't done enough housework and I haven't got back to this person. It's just give yourself a break, sit down and think about, okay, well, what did I do? Because, my kids have gone to bed, they've had a story, they've had their milk, good night, love you, mummy, like, Erin's talking so much more, you're getting more back. So actually they've gone to bed and they're happy. Do you know what? Did I read the right book at the right time? Probably not. Did we put all the squares in the squares, or did they go in the round holes? Have I forgotten to email somebody back? Probably. But actually everything happens, everything gets done. Is there a pile of dishes or the washing hasn't been done or whatever? Probably. But think about what did you do, and just try and remind yourself that it's hard. Like, it's hard. And if you are a parentpreneur, I think I've got that right, yeah. And especially if you've got babies and things like that, where you've got other friends who are on maternity leave and you're not. So the fact that you are achieving something and you have done something, be proud of that and give yourself a break. Sit down, take, so I do try and do affirmations every morning, and a little bit of journaling. And do you know what? I don't do it every day. Sometimes I do miss it. Sometimes the kids are up from 5:30 and one goes to sleep and the other one's awake, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But give yourself a break, and just that journaling of, actually, I did do this and this did go well. And the affirmations of, today I am going to do this, and I'm going to do my best. And when I get to the end of the day, if I didn't do everything I meant to do, it's not because it wasn't my best. That was my best for that day. So just take a bit of time for you and try and remember why you're doing what you're doing.
That's sound advice. I mean, yeah, I always try and say to myself, good is better than perfect.
Exactly. Something's better than nothing.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think because entrepreneurs are very driven, they tend to find themselves in a very positive kind of little echo chamber where they're listening to, a podcast, they're, doing affirmations and journaling and all this sort of stuff, that they forget that their sort of dedication and their sort of leverage of their time is way ahead of the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
So even, a pretty crappy day from someone who's motivated is probably a pretty average to above average day for someone who's just trundling in and going through the motions sometimes.
Yeah. And yeah, just give yourself a break. Like, try and be positive and remember those things that did happen, and like I say, I'm not perfect, and I'm not saying I do that every day. Sometimes Brett comes home from work, and because he does still work in a corporate career, and he'll come home and I'm like, oh, I haven't done enough with the kids, and I've got 50 emails, and and like, it takes for him to sometimes be like, right, calm down. But are the kids fed? Have they had a bath? Are they in their jammies? They look pretty happy to me. They're going to go to bed in a minute. You can go through emails. Like, you've done a pretty good job to get to where we are, and everyone's still alive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so important having that support from your partner.
Yeah.
It's funny what you said earlier about, he'll hear this and go, hang on a second.
Yeah.
I mean, my tagline on LinkedIn is, I'm helping others by scratching my own itch. And I have to remember my own advice a lot of the time. Yeah, my wife Renata, she listened to one of the first episodes of the podcast when we launched, and she went, "You don't do that." I went, I tried to.
Yeah, and if I did, I'd be amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so settle for good, not perfect.
Exactly. I think one of my other bits of advice that's really helped me is to try and, it's not easy, and maybe network or whatever, but just try and find, even if it's just one or two people who are going through the same thing that you are. So I've got me and my friend Charlotte, we only met through networking, and we're on exactly the same journey, and every morning it's a voice note of, oh my god, Erin's done this and this and this, and it's only 6:30, and I've got to get back to so and so today, how's your day going? And just some people who understand the exact stresses, they're doing HMO conversions, they're putting in for new build, they're buying land. So somebody, whereas some of your other friends who maybe work in a career, and I am not playing that down at all, because I know how tough that is. But they're doing a different kind of thing. So they may think, well, you get to stay at home with your kids all day, and I wish I could do that. But then sometimes I wish, okay, but because you go to work, you do have set childcare or things like that. So sometimes I wish I had that. So you'll always, to an extent, want what you haven't got.
Yeah.
But if you surround the people who are on exactly the same journey as you, a 15-minute chat with Charlotte and my day can be changed, because you understand somebody's going through that, and actually will say, well, I tried this, or I'll say, well, I've tried this. Oh my God, why didn't I think of that? It's so obvious. So to have those people will make such a difference to your life.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mentioned earlier before we started recording that I have an accountability group, and that's just grown massively in terms of support and, confidence boosting. And as you say, sometimes you're just too close to the problem, and it just takes someone from, far away, and even from a different industry, just to look at it and go, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or I wouldn't worry about it. That's pretty good. I think that's very inspiring. And that I always like to ask my guests who or what else inspires them. And I'm wondering, I know that you've got some big challenges planned. I don't know if you've announced them yet, over the coming year, you and Brett, for raising money for the NHS. Is that one of your sort of inspirations?
Yeah, definitely. So when so Erin was born, and she cruised through life until about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she got hospitalized from bronchiolitis. And she needed oxygen and steroids and things to try and keep her airways open. And we took her to the RUH in Bath, and they were just fantastic. But when Connor was born, he was born 5 weeks early. And he ended up in NICU, and then had to be supported by the NHS again in the RUH, and they were brilliant. However, when he was only 5.5 weeks old, unfortunately he got bronchiolitis, but he got seriously ill, and we rushed him to the RUH in Bath, and unfortunately by the time we got there, he wasn't breathing. And they had to resuscitate him, and he got taken into intensive care and put on life support. And there was a consultant in the RUH in Bath who they called, and he came in, and he stayed in the hospital for 2 days and literally kept our little boy alive. And now he's 9 months old, and like, you wouldn't even know he's had any issues, any challenges. But that in the space of not even 2 years, they've both had challenges now, and they've both been supported. And interestingly, when we took Erin in, the consultant that was on that night was the consultant that actually came in and kept Connor alive. So we wanted to do something anyway, but that was the final sort of, we are going to do something. So I am running the Bath Half Marathon in October. Right now, I currently can't even run a bath. So I will be training over the next 10 weeks. And you'll see it on my social media, probably me stressed out with the double buggy, or, just had enough. But we're going to do it and raise some money. And Brett's got some other things that I'm sure he will announce. Because we want to give back. They basically gave us our children, and without them, Connor, he wouldn't have survived. He wouldn't. So yeah, we will be doing what we can to raise money to give something back there. I think, like I said to you about using local builders and things like that, is trying to give back. Well, they supported us, and I want to give back to them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an incredibly powerful why, to keep you motivated and stuff. And I can see, it's very emotional. And at this stage, it's probably a lot of joy and happiness that it's a happy ending. So
it could have been so much worse. And like I say, there is always the stories of the NHS in crisis, and the NHS are awful and they're horrendous and things like that. But when you get down to it, the people on the front line are incredible. The business is a mess, and that's the sort of thing I'd love to go in and sort out and be like, right, let's have a look at this. What's going on? When you're pregnant, all your maternity notes are in a book, and they give you the book and basically say, don't lose that, or we don't know what's happened. And you think, 2023, what's going on? So I'd love to sort that out, but for now I'm going to stick to the property development and just raise some money to help them sort it out.
It's like little by little, isn't it? It's like slowly sort of thing. And the challenges and the opportunities present themselves. That's lovely. I really love that. So and again, a question I like to ask my guests is there have you ever come across a quote, or do you have your own quote, or kind of one liner that just summarizes your sort of journey as a parent and an entrepreneur?
Just that for me, that it's hard. It is hard. And you are all in. You don't get a day off or 2 days off, and yes, it's flexible, so you can take a bit of time off, but ultimately it still sticks with you. So give yourself a break. And the one thing, I think it's Jim Quick that says it, and he talks about lies, and I speak about this all the time. So it's limiting ideas entertained. So whenever you think, well, I can't do that, can I? Little old me, if you will have probably seen on my social media, I talk about Gordon. And Gordon's the little man that sits on my shoulder, and he says to me, "Else, you can't do that. Not you. You're not going to be able to do that." So I have to say to Gordon, "Come on, do one." That's lies. That is, they're limited ideas, and you're entertaining them. Off you go. We're going to do this. So it's just that. Get rid of Gordon when he starts chirping in your ear. Tell him to do one, and that's all lies. And entertain it. Go and entertain those ideas. Don't limit yourself. You might not be able to do it today, you might not be able to do it tomorrow, but I'd be a lot further forward if I'd have had the confidence and started this when I wanted to, rather than listening to the people who laughed at me about the crayons.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I read that article when you talked about Gordon.
Yeah.
And I chuckled, and it made me wonder. I said, wow, that must have been one hell of a horrible teacher at school or someone.
Yeah. I actually don't know where it came from. I'm not really sure, but it stuck with me for about, it's been since I was about 18, 19. And it initially started as well when I wanted to learn to ski. And I couldn't ski, and I was like, I can't do it. And people were like, yeah, you can. And I was like, no, that little man's telling me I can't. And I think someone might have said then, well, that's just Gordon. And it's just stuck with me for life now. Gordon's there, and he's telling me I can't. And I have to literally sit down and be like, right, hang on. Why is Gordon telling me I can't? And why am I telling Gordon that, no, yes, I can?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because that's kind of part of our human operating system that's not actually evolved in about 10,000 years. That's the kind of thing that we're saying, no, don't go into there because there might be a tiger, or don't eat those red berries because they might be poisonous. It's that same part of the brain, but we've come so far forward, like in terms of the technology, the speed of life, etc. But we still have this really quite primordial control mechanism. I often talk to the kids about their operating systems, and we talk about one of the little so one of my favorite, you mentioned Jim Quick, who I love listening to, but my favorite is probably Bob Proctor, and he always says that thoughts become feelings, feelings become actions, actions become reactions. The reactions are what come in from the outside world. And just literally by being more responsive rather than reactive to what's going on in your head, you can deal with those Gordons, and you can go out and have a more positive perspective on life.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just I try to be positive. I try to draw that positive energy, etc. But what I never ever want people to think is that's it, because it's not. There's the days where it is actually a bit shit, and there's the days where actually it's all gone a bit wrong. And I put on my stories on Instagram a few weeks ago, I'd got kids ready, we were off to do a site visit. Halfway there, Erin has spewed everywhere. It's in my hair, it's come through the headrest, like to the point where you think, I've got to go home. Like I can't change. I can change her, but it's in the car seat. I'd have to put her back in the car seat. It's everywhere. And you get home and you think, oh, I wanted to see that builder. And was the first fix finished for the electrics? And and it is frustrating. So I don't want anyone to ever think that I wake up in the morning and go, oh, I've got a positive mindset and everything's going to be great and it's going to be amazing, because that's not life. And it's not life when you've got children. So I think in that instance is coming home, let your frustrations out, bang around a bit, get her in the bath, get everyone changed, and then think about it and think, you know what, it was just a bit of sick. I can ring the builder. Today's Friday, tomorrow when Brett's home, I'll go there on my own and have a look around or whatever. And it's just trying to, if you've got to let that stress out, let it out, do whatever you've got to do to get it out, but move on. Don't live in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very much the respond, don't react sort of thing, isn't it? It's just having that and like I am far from perfect. I shout, I'm grumpy dad, all the rest of it. But if you kind of even just a bit of the time try and do the responding rather than the reacting, then it's a heck of a lot better. So
Brett, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was saying Brett's got two older children as well. So and he was talking to them the other day about road rage, and if you're the one that's had the road rage and like, oh, you bloody idiot, and you pulled out and this and that, you're going to drive off and you're going to be the one that's like, oh, and your whole day could be ruined. Okay. Absolutely. Whereas if you go, oh, he just pulled out in front of me, that was annoying, and you move on, you'll
Yeah.
have a totally different day. And that's the sort of thing, isn't it? Get annoyed about it, get annoyed about the person, but then move on.
It's true. I was I think, like a lot of guys, quite angry in my late teens and early 20s and stuff like that, and I would fly off the handle and speak my mind. But these days as well, with the road rage is quite a funny one, unless it's a really really either dangerous situation or just plain stupid. I always try and say, oh, maybe they're taking their kid to hospital, for example.
Yeah.
Maybe their mum has just had a fall or whatever, and you just you kind of try and put a spin on it that way, and it sounds really stupid, it sounds a bit naive and daft, but just reframing a situation, and the person who cut you up at the junction, they don't care.
No,
They
they've
don't
moved
know.
on, and
Yeah.
or they're laughing at you, going, "Do you see that woman shouting and screaming? Yeah, all right, I pulled out in front of her, bad, silly me, but we didn't crash, and now she's screaming at me in the mirror." What's the point?
Yeah.
You've got to try and rationalize it, and that doesn't mean that you'll be able to do that all the time. And if you need to scream, shout, bang something, people go for a run, I don't know, whatever it is, go in the garden and physically have a scream, do it, but just move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about your kids going along to site visits and all the rest of it, and Brett's two older kids. I mean, what other ways do they get involved, if at all, with the business? Are they interested, or are they just like, oh yeah, that's whatever.
I think Brett's older children, they do understand. Definitely, they are much older, but they're not particularly as involved, because it's more like a day-to-day thing. They're not here so much in the week that we'd be taking them to, like, they are at school, or with their mum, and they're with us sort of like half the time, so not as much, but they do understand, they do ask questions, and Brett tries to talk, obviously being an accountant, talks to them about running a business as general and how it'll work and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're a bit, oh dad, that's boring, but I do think it sinks in, and I do think actually in a way they do want to know that, because they will think about it and come back and ask questions. But yeah, with our two, because they're there and they're living it and they're breathing it, I've got my laptop out and everyone will say, "Mummy's working." I'm like, "Mummy is working." So she understands. And then when they come to site, I know we joke about it, but she's got a little tool bag, and she's got a hammer, and she's got a screwdriver and things like that. So and all the builders, they get their tools out and they pretend to do it with her and things like that. So I think as she gets older, she will understand a lot more, and the same for Connor. So try and get them involved and understand. And when we go on a weekend, or we go and look at the properties, if Brett wants to come and have a look with someone, Brett will say that this is mummy's work and things like that. And so yeah, they do get involved, but they are just so young. I don't think they quite understand what's going on yet. But I don't know why Erin's got this obsession with stroking all the builders' hair, and they all, they're so lovely, they all bend down and let her do it. I'm like, guys, you haven't got to let her stroke your hair.
I love that.
I don't know why. She said, "That hair, Kev hair," and they all bend down. And I'm like, guys, tell me no.
But I think what you're doing is phenomenal. Like, that level of osmosis, that they're just drawing in all of this information, and they will be, because right through till sort of late single digits, early double digits, they were literally just a sponge, sucking everything in.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old or 9.5-year-old, he came out with something the other day. We were watching something on TV. He went, "Well, that's just a stupid idea. There's no margin in that." And
I love that.
yeah, and I just looked at him and went, spot on. Well done. I didn't make a big deal of it. I went, yeah, spot on. So obviously stuff's going in. It's lovely. I've tried. I have tried sort of like having the old motivational sort of like tapes going on Audible and stuff as we drive around. We drive around a lot for his football, so we have quite some hefty mileage each week. And I get away with it for about the first 20 minutes, and then you go, yeah, can I just have my music now? So hopefully in the 20 minutes there's something sort of hitting them.
And that is, it will, you're right, something will be going in.
Yeah, and it pops out when it's ready. It kind of gets shaken up in their head and falls out at the right time for them.
Yeah.
Ellie, you spoke earlier about you will always pay people back, even if you have to go and like sort of on the street corner to beg for it or sing for it.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? Because obviously running any business and real estate is one of those things which is illiquid and tough. How do you balance looking at new opportunities with the need for providing that sort of financial security for your family? Where's your barometer in balancing that?
Yeah, so we've got a small portfolio that we had prior to starting this business, and we've got quite a lot of equity in there. So whenever we do a project, we always make sure there's enough margin in it to pay everybody back plus our profits. So worst case scenario, if there was an issue, a contingency that we really didn't foresee or anything like that, that might suck away our profits, but we will always be back to the point where we can pay everybody back and pay their profits, their profit share out. So if there wasn't enough margin in it to do that, we wouldn't take the deal on. And I joke, and I take the mick out of him, but that is where Brett comes into his own. Everything is analysed to within an inch of his life, and if it isn't going to work, we don't do it. And then worst case scenario, we know that we've got equity in our small property portfolio, that if it, we were 3-4 months off of completion and we're thinking, right, we are going to run over here, or we have lost more money than, I don't know, something's gone crazy wrong, or whatever it may be, we know we can fall back on that. So if it was something that could go so wrong that we were going to lose our profits and not be able to pay them back, we know we've got equity that we could withdraw over here. And then worst case scenario, if something was that bad, we would have equity in it. Well, we do have a lot of equity in our own home that we could then sweat that asset, but we would have to have lost our profit, their profit, taken the equity out of our rental house, and then taking the equity out of our house before we ever got there. So we've kind of got a backup on a backup on a backup. And what we always said we wanted, and this is not to be arrogant or to blow our own trumpet, is to have enough equity in our portfolio at any one time that if anything went horribly wrong, and we're talking like the world's imploded here, we could sell our house and have enough equity to go and buy a 3-bedroom outright, that we still had security for our family and our home. So if it ever got to the point where we thought we were getting below that, we wouldn't be doing the deal.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Having that pressure release, that peace of mind,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest downside to doing your own thing, is those kind of moments where you wake up usually between 3 and 5 in the morning, and just like stressed and panic, thinking, oh my God, what if? And it's, it's all what ifism and stuff like that. Thank you. We're coming towards the close of the show, but I'd love to hear what your plans are for the next sort of 5 to 10 years. Where do you see yourself as a parentpreneur?
So for the next sort of in 5 years, my kids will be at school and I just won't know what to do with myself, right? So I never, ever want to wish the time away. But like some days I wake up and think, they're going to go to school. Like I'm going to cry my eyes out. I'm going to be they'll probably, the way they are, they'll probably go into school and be like, yeah, bye mum, what's your problem? But then, you get the free time. So for me, it's about building a strong, sustainable portfolio, but also helping as many people as we can along the way. And, I said about it earlier, and I genuinely do mean it, in every situation we go into, it's how can I help you? Because if I'm helping you, inevitably, that's probably going to help me. But genuinely, what can I give from it? So we want to work with as many investors as we can. So if anybody has any lump sums of cash that's just sat in the bank and they're not doing anything with it, by all means, come and speak to me, and we'll work out some terms. We've got 4 properties going into conveyancing that we're negotiating on at the moment, to be houses of multiple occupation. We've got planning approved for 2 4-bed houses, and we're hopefully going through planning for a 3rd on that development site. So for me, next 5-10 years, I just see this growing and growing and growing. We will grow our portfolio, which will give us more of a sustainable base to work from, like I spoke about the equity and knowing we've got that over here, whilst we grow it and grow it and grow it. And we'll have to adapt, and we'll have to go with the markets. It might be that, I don't know, something else happens to the interest rate, something happens, the house prices come down and more people can afford to get on the market, so house of multiple occupation might not be as desirable at that point. There will always be a market for that, because we've built those in the student areas, so it's right between Bristol University and the University of the West of England, so the southwest of England. So we know we'll always have a market there, but diversifying in 5 to 10 years, we'll go with the market. We have to be adaptable.
That's the key word there, isn't it? It's the adaptability and having that fluidity to sort of respond, not react to changes in circumstances. That's fantastic. So where can people get hold of you? You said about investors, if they had some spare cash sitting around, and where can they follow your journey, because it is very enlightening and entertaining?
So on LinkedIn, Ellie Donaghy, quite simple. Come ahead and find me there, or on Instagram, Ellie's Property Mission, which is well, you'll see my real nitty gritty of the daily life of who's done what, or I don't know, on my on-site, but having to change a nappy on the back seat of the car, or someone's had a fix, they've dropped their snacks in the foundations of a build or something. That you'll see the more the nitty gritty on of the day to day on Instagram. But yeah, you can also find me over on LinkedIn. We're always looking to work with private investors, and I've done some public motivational speaking, which I just love. I love, even if it just touches 1-2 people, a year, and somebody else thinks, do you know what, I'm going to take that leap and I'm going to do it. So yeah, more than happy to do that, to attend any events. If anybody is looking for any speakers, I am available. Literally, that's one of my favorite things.
That's fantastic. That's all very good. I can highly recommend following Ellie on both Instagram and LinkedIn. You do get some great insights and some and some great humor as well. So Ellie Donaghy, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for coming on the Parentpreneur Show. And folks listening to this episode, remember, it's more done, less guilt. You've got this.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Thanks, Ellie.
Amazing. Thank you so much.